Welcome to this lecture on parasitology. Today, we are going to explore a fascinating yet dangerous creature known as Fasciolopsis buski. Imagine hosting a dinner party, and a tiny, uninvited guest sneaks in on your fresh vegetables, refuses to leave, and grows to an enormous size inside your body. This is exactly what happens with this specific parasite. By the end of this session, you will understand its biology, how it affects the human body, and the mathematical tools we use to measure the severity of the infection it causes. Now that we know what we are dealing with, let us look closer at this giant guest. The parasite is scientifically named Fasciolopsis buski. It belongs to a class of parasitic flatworms called trematodes, which we commonly refer to as flukes. What makes this particular fluke stand out is its sheer size. It holds the record for being the largest intestinal fluke to infect humans. To give you an idea, these worms can grow up to 7.5 centimeters in length. Imagine a parasite the size of your finger living inside your digestive tract, stealing your nutrients. Understanding its size is just the beginning. We also need to recognize its shape and where it lives. Unlike its close relative, the liver fluke, Fasciolopsis buski lacks a pointed head structure known as a cephalic cone. Instead, it has a very distinct, rounded, leaf-like appearance. Once it enters the body, it sets up its home primarily in the small intestine. It does not just infect humans, though. Its definitive hosts, meaning the hosts where the parasite reaches maturity and reproduces, are typically humans and pigs. This shared host range makes it a significant agricultural and public health issue. So what happens when this leaf-shaped parasite takes up residence in the small intestine? The resulting infection is a medical condition known as fasciolopsis. Because the worm is so large and attaches to the intestinal wall, it causes severe inflammation and systemic toxicity. Patients, often children, suffer from debilitating abdominal pain, chronic diarrhea, and severe malnutrition because the worm is literally stealing their food. In heavy infections, the situation gets even worse. The parasites release toxic byproducts that trigger severe allergic reactions. This can lead to dangerous swelling in the face and legs, which can tragically be fatal in young children if left untreated. Given how severe fasciolopsis can be, you might be wondering how people catch it and how we can stop it. This parasite is highly endemic in South and Southeast Asia. Humans become infected by ingesting the larval stage of the parasite, which hides on the surfaces of aquatic plants. Two of the most common culprits are raw water chestnuts and water caltrops. Fortunately, preventing this disease is incredibly straightforward. Public health officials teach communities a simple, life-saving intervention. Always boil water chestnuts and aquatic vegetables before eating them. This simple act of cooking completely breaks the chain of transmission. Now that we understand how the infection spreads, let us look at how doctors diagnose its severity. In parasitology, we cannot simply look inside a living patient's small intestine to count how many giant flukes are hiding there. Instead, we have to be clever. We use a mathematical model based on the patient's waste. Adult flukes reproduce and release eggs, which are then expelled in the patient's feces. By measuring the total daily egg output, we get a direct, measurable window into the reproductive activity of the hidden parasites. The more eggs we find, the heavier the worm burden inside the patient. This brings us to the mathematical formula used to calculate that daily egg output. The formula is T equals E times M. Conceptually, we are just taking the concentration of eggs in a small sample and scaling it up to the total daily waste. In this equation, T represents the total number of parasite eggs excreted by the patient in a single day. E stands for the egg concentration, which a lab technician measures under a microscope in eggs per gram. Finally, M is the total mass of the feces produced in one day, measured in grams. If the egg concentration E increases while the daily mass M stays the same, the total output T goes up, indicating a worsening infection. If treatment works, E drops and T goes down. Before we move on, let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. Imagine a young patient suffering from abdominal pain. The lab analyzes a stool sample and finds an egg concentration of 300 eggs per gram. The patient produces a total fecal mass of 200 grams in one day. We need to find the total daily egg output. We choose our formula, T equals E times M, because it scales the microscopic lab finding to the full daily biological output. We substitute E with 300 and M with 200. Multiplying these gives us 60,000. This means the patient is excreting 60,000 eggs every single day, physically indicating a robust, actively reproducing population of flukes. Now that we have calculated the total daily egg output, what do we actually do with that massive number? For a medical team, the ultimate goal is to know the physical number of adult worms causing the illness. This is called the worm burden. Because researchers know roughly how many eggs a single adult Fasciolopsis buski fluke produces every day, we can work backward from the total egg count. Knowing the exact worm burden is critical. It is not just a trivia fact. It directly helps the doctor decide on the appropriate dosage and duration of antiparasitic medication to safely cure the patient. To find that exact number of worms, we use a second formula. Conceptually, we're taking the massive pile of daily eggs and distributing them equally among the individual worms responsible for laying them. The formula is N equals T divided by P. Here, N represents the total number of adult worms living inside the host. T is the total daily egg output that we just learned how to calculate. And P represents the daily egg production capacity of a single adult parasite. For Fasciolopsis buski, researchers know that P is approximately 25,000 eggs per day. If the total eggs, T, increases, the estimated number of worms, N, will proportionally increase. Let us apply this new formula to a heavily infected patient. We're given that the patient has a total daily egg output of 125,000 eggs. We also know the standard single worm production rate is 25,000 eggs per day. We are asked to find the number of adult worms. We use the formula N equals T divided by P. We substitute T with 125,000 and P with 25,000. Dividing these numbers gives us exactly 5. This means there are approximately 5 adult giant flukes inside the patient. While 5 sounds small, remember these worms are up to 7.5 centimeters long, easily causing severe intestinal blockage. Now that we have mathematically modeled the infection, let us visualize the biological journey of this parasite. You are looking at the complete life cycle of Fasciolopsis buski. Starting at the top, a human host ingests cysts attached to aquatic plants. Moving clockwise to the right, these cysts mature into adult leaf-shaped flukes inside the human small intestine. At the bottom right, the adult flukes release eggs that pass through feces into fresh water.
At the bottom, these eggs hatch into swimming larvae called Miracidia, which then infect a freshwater snail, shown on the bottom left. Finally, on the left, new larvae called Cercaria emerge from the snail and attach to aquatic plants, ready to be eaten by the next human host.
We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us reinforce the most important ideas. First, Fasciolopsis buski is the largest intestinal fluke to infect humans, and it causes a severe, debilitating disease known as fasciolopsiiasis. Second, its life cycle is deeply tied to freshwater snails and aquatic plants, meaning humans get infected simply by eating raw water chestnuts or caltrops. Third, we can use mathematical formulas based on daily egg counts to accurately estimate the physical number of worms inside a patient, which guides life-saving treatment. Finally, and most importantly, this disease is entirely preventable. Simply boiling aquatic vegetables completely disrupts the parasite's life cycle. You now have a comprehensive understanding of this giant intestinal fluke.